Thank you, Cliff. Good morning. Welcome to the time change. So a nice brisk morning here in Florida, and welcome to those joining us on Facebook, probably in your warm jammies with your warm beverage. Indulge and delight in this morning's service with us here. As always, a pleasure and an honor to be here to open up this discourse of seeking and finding, of knowing that we have a hidden treasure and we have the willingness at least to investigate the possibility of finding it. And this is really what we like to focus on here, is the experience of uncovering or unveiling what is hidden in plain sight. This is, the great mystery is literally, as Jesus says in A Course in Miracles, heaven is here. There is nowhere else. Heaven is now. There is no other time. So the way that our minds are geared or oriented to the present moment is either bringing us into the direct experience of this treasure that can be called heaven, a metaphor of, perfect delight and fulfillment and knowing and power and love and belonging and warmth and everything that we've ever wanted fulfilled. Or our orientation of consciousness can shut us out from it. And so the spiritual path is a willing, direct, conscious effort of directing our awareness and our willingness to push through, to open up, to uncover and unveil our own perception. This is an inside job, as we oftentimes say here. The inside job of recognizing your true nature is actually heaven itself. This is why, as we'll get into this morning, that there is only one reality. And because we don't see that heaven is here and there's nowhere else and heaven is now and there is no other time, we don't believe that ontologically. That means at the level of our own being. The logic of our being does not align with that simple truth, that there is only one reality. And therefore this one reality, which is all grace, all truth, all love, is you. Is you. Is this guy, is the chair, the light, the ceiling, the breeze. Everything that's manifesting is actually this one reality. That's why in the Hebrew Bible we have Isaiah going into the throne vision, as it's called, and he sees the flaming seraphim chanting Kadosh, 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 Adonai Sabaoth, Malo Kol Haaretz Kevodo. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. There's only glory. There's only heaven. And our consciousness in this spiritual practice is beginning to will it, want it, and deliberately causing it to arise within direct experience. So how happy are you? How blessed are you? And this blessing, as we know, is full of this knowledge and glory that is for all, because all are participating in this glory. They are this very glory itself, but they're keeping themselves shut out by the orientation of their consciousness. And what they are choosing to see, and oftentimes will conflict or veil this direct experience of heaven. So we're going into this morning that we want to see things as they really are. We want to see ourselves as we really are. And in order to do that, we have to first recognize what in Sufism is called our station, where we are existentially or ontologically fixed within the economy of creation. For lack of a better way of translating it, in Sufism we're all referred to as beggars or slaves. You see this in the New Testament, where Paul will address his audience as Paul, the doulos of the Lord, the slave of the Lord. He recognizes his station, that every moment we are needy. You're needy for your next breath. In about 50 minutes, you'll be needy for your breakfast. Many of us were needy for our coffee this morning, where every moment there's a need. So we want to recognize our station. We are needy. And the way that this perception either aligns with the direct experience of heaven or not is that we think within our distorted frame of reference that our needs are going to be met with the things in the world, with the objects in the world, riches and prestige and position and accolades and sex and drugs and everything else. When we're disoriented or delusional, we think that our neediness can be met by the needs within the world. As we come more and more to the choice of waking up, of putting ourselves into the right position or posture towards reality, we realize that there is only one reality, and all of our needs are met by the bestower of reality. So that's why the awakened ones will oftentimes refer to themselves as the slaves of God, the servants of God. Now, that doesn't remain such over time, because as you become more aligned with reality, the attributes of God become infused into your being. Remember, there's only one reality. And you are the glory of God. You are the light of God. You are the love of God. But you have to allow that in. So the proper orientation of knowing that you're nothing without God is the first step, and that you're needy only for God. And then when you look for all of your needs to be met from on high, they will show up in the world as situations and people and things and relationships, but you'll always give the glory and the thanks to God as the only one who is really bestowing or withholding from you. And as that servant-master relationship develops, you evolve into what the Sufis and what Jesus will later call in the Gospels, that you're the friend. You're the friend of God. That everything that God has is now yours because you're friends. There's intimacy. There's knowing one another. So we're going to explore all of this today, and we're going to look at it through the lens of Sufism, which again is a beautiful tradition because it gives us the unveiled teachings of direct experience. So if you've been coming to this service, you'll know that we like to spend some time with Hafiz or Hafez, and we're going to look at him today. But first we're going to start with this little book by William Chittick called Sufism. And Chittick is one of the leading scholars of Sufi teachings. And I just want to read a couple of excerpts here that will get us on our way. So there's a verse within the Quran that says that everything is perishing except God's face. That God's face is the only reality that will never perish. In the introductory portion of A Course in Miracles, many of you know that there's that phrase, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. It's the same intention or import of meaning. Nothing real can be threatened. Everything else is perishing but his face. Nothing unreal exists. So we are at this point of recognizing our neediness and then beginning to sift and sort out and discern where we have been mistaken and trying to find our selfishly motivated needs on our own, which has caused us a lot of drama and trauma. We haven't recognized our true station, and this is another thing that he'll bring up in A Course in Miracles. He calls it the authority problem. He says every separated mind is encountering the authority problem. He says the authority problem, and not the love of money, is the root of all evil. The authority problem tells you in your heart that you exist all on your own. Your life is yours to direct, and what you need and want is more important than what others need and want. And therefore, your authority problem doesn't really have any qualms in violating things that belong to others so that you can get yours. And the world operates in this way. And we are all products of that system. That's why, again, in the epistles, Paul will say, you were once sons of disobedience. You were once in this state of total selfish consumption, trying to get your needs met for yourself at the cost of others. But now you've come to realize something very important. First of all, you'll suffer whenever you try to meet your needs on your own, because nothing unreal exists. And if you're not seeking God, you're actually seeking pain. And the delusion and the deception is that the pain will sometimes appear as pleasure at first, as temptation, until you have it, until you've ingested it, and then it sours, then it hurts. So this orientation is so important in the beginning of our conversation this morning. And let's recognize that this seed of information or knowledge that's coming through these teachings needs a quiet and open heart in order to take root. So find that space within you that allows you to open, to settle within the present moment. And as you do this, you'll tap into a more subtle place within yourself, and you'll realize that your power is tremendous because, as it says in Sufism, you are a child of the moment. And whatever decision you are making this moment will have power over you. And you determine where you give your power. So as you settle into your heart in a state of openness and surrender, knowing that heaven is here, there is nowhere else, truly. Heaven is now, there is no other time. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. All is perishing except his face. Settle within that truth and open yourself and be willing to become a child of this moment where God can reveal his face to you. His face is so glorious that everything else needs to be let go in order for this treasure to be yours. There cannot be two in your heart. So this is William Chittick, where he says, our true self, listen to this, our true self is the face of God. Our true self is the face of God that looks upon us at each instant of our existence. Everything is perishing but his face can also be translated, everything is perishing but its face, with the pronoun going back to everything instead of God. But the upshot is the same. In the first case, the verse means that all things perish except the face of God, and God's face is that which looks upon creation. Wherever you turn, there is the face of God. Another quote from the Quran. Wherever you turn, there is the face of God looking back at you. This is going to play in as we move along in the conversation. Everywhere you turn, there is the face of God looking back at you. and you are the face of God. So think about how we have to purify our hearts, because everything that we identify with screams that that can't be true. But it is. And so we've sold ourselves totally to the enslavement of the world. And we're coming to give ourselves over to another master, right? We can't serve two masters. So everything is perishing but its face, and God's face is looking back at you wherever you turn. It is the face of God that gives you whatever reality you have. For if he did not look at you, you would cease to exist. That's how intimate this relationship is. He is literally the being of your being. He's the eye of your eye. He's the one seeing and hearing and walking you. Everything you have is his. And the sanity of giving that place to him will bring you back into the life abundant. This is what Jesus says. I've come to give life. Megale, Zoe, the abundant life, the mega life. When you know your place, you will find your abundance. So he says, if we read the verse as saying that its face does not perish, this means that your face does not perish. Because your face in truth is that which looks upon God. And that can only be the face of God looking back at you. For nothing sees God but God. So when you have the direct experience that heaven is here, there is nowhere else, heaven is now, there is no other time, you will echo the words of Christ. I and the Father are one kind. There is nothing that the Father has that he does not impart to me. He's not ashamed to call us brethren. We are of the same family. Everything you are is God. When you take the veils off of everything that's unreal in you, it will be God looking at God. But you'll know your station. You won't be inflated with a grandiosity, but you'll know there's no reality other than him. And everything he is you. Open to this realization. Let these words prompt you. There's something already that knows this in you. That's why you're really here. To suss it out. That's what's so beautiful about our time on Sunday. That you're not being fed a doctrine to believe and stay within a dream of separation. You're being given these opportunities to unveil your inner beauty and treasure. And then all of the doctrines will make sense because you'll see what they were really designed to do and what they will do if you know your station. It's important here too, Chittick says, he's quoting one of the great Sufi masters, Imam al-Ghazali, that he's speaking of Ghazali. He says, Ghazali points out that each thing has two faces, one turned toward itself and one turned toward God. The first face looks toward self, which is the West, and the second toward God, who is the East. When you look towards the West, they say when you die, you go towards the West, right? It's the sun setting. It's the twilight, the darkness. So the face that looks at self looks at darkness. and sees the multiplicity of things within the world. The other face looks directly into the sun, into the pure light of being. That's why tauba or repentance is the number one step to cause you to have this experience. You're turning your face from yourself, from dead things, from unreal things, from the things that are perishing. And you're turning it towards the light that infuses all things with whatever attributes they have. And then you'll see that even in the world of things, there's the face of God. And then you'll be rich because you've never left your Father's house, so to speak. Heaven is here. So this is Ghazali. So each thing has two faces, a face toward itself and a face toward its Lord. Considered in terms of the face of itself, it is non-existent. So the face that only sees John in me, John's needs, John's history, John's story, everything John, 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 the one who's obsessing about me, myself, and mine, doesn't really exist. Nothing unreal exists. John is perishing. John is a phantom. John is a dream. But considered in terms of the face of God, it exists. So John becomes the slave and then the friend of God. When John turns his face to God, John gets everything John ever desired in truth. And then John is made into a pure vessel of abundant life that can then shine and play and relish in this creation. But John's existence doesn't come from John, and it isn't gotten from the things in the West. Therefore, everything is perishing but his face, from eternity without beginning to eternity without end. Little light reading for a Sunday morning. Just let that soak in. You are the face of God, and everywhere you turn, the face of God is looking at you. There's a beautiful poem that Hafiz has to illustrate this, and I'm sure Lisa will appreciate it. It's called When a Dog Runs Up. Start seeing everything as God, but keep it secret. Become like the man and woman who are awestruck and nourished, listening to a golden nightingale sing in a beautiful foreign language, while God, invisible to most, nests upon its tongue. Hafiz, who can tell in this world that when a dog runs up to you wagging its ecstatic tail, you lean over and whisper in its ear, "Beloved, I am so glad you are happy to see me. Beloved, I am so glad, so very glad you have come." You know, I've mentioned the work of Dr. David Hawkins before. Many of you are probably familiar with him. He created a scale of consciousness, and it starts at the bottom of the scale at the lowest calibration of consciousness, which is 30, and it's attributed to feelings of shame. And then it goes up like a spectrum into higher frequencies, guilt, anger, pride, etc. It keeps going up the scale. And then at 200, it flips from egocentric emotions to God-centric or higher self-centric emotions. And it keeps going up after 200. 500, you're beyond reason and the rational and the logical. 600, you're really in enlightened territory. He calibrated the wagging of a dog's tail at 6:15. Seeing the face of God everywhere. Again, Hafiz, wanting our life to make sense. All day long you do this, and then even in your sleep, pan for gold. We are looking to find something to celebrate with great enthusiasm, wanting all our battles and toil and our life to make sense. I found it. I found it. I found it, a hermit once began to shout after having spent years in solitude meditating. Where? A young shepherd boy nearby asked. Where? And the hermit replied, it may take a while, but I will show you. For now, just sit near to me. All day long, we do this with our movements and our thoughts. Pan for gold. So again, how fortunate are we? Because we're hardwired to pan for gold. We can't get out of panning for gold. But what we can do is go from the west to the east in our orientation. There ain't no gold in them there hills. Don't go west, young man. Don't go west. You ain't going to find your score there. If you go east, that means towards the face of God within your own heart. And you begin to pan for gold in that same vigilant, disciplined way with all of your effort and your willingness. You will find what you're seeking. That's why the hermit said to the young shepherd boy, just sit here a while. Sit next to me. This is the other thing that happens when you're really tuning in and opening up to the divine presence within you. There you will be met within the invisible planes of your own consciousness with divine teachers. If you don't see physical teachers with your physical eyes, you're never left abandoned. There is a host of teachers that will come to you in the invisible. And if you can get quiet enough and tune in to those that are imparting their ideas and their love and their presence to you, you will begin to actually acclimate to that atmosphere that the master teachers bring directly to your heart. This is how, again, St. Paul was illuminated. He met the Christ on the inner planes. He never met the physical Jesus. And he even says in one of his letters to the Corinthians, even if we knew the Christ in the flesh, we know him like this no longer. The Christ is risen beyond the flesh, for flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. So be still in your heart and know that there is a vast world waiting to open up to you on the inner planes. And it's vastly populated. This one is called Fill in the Blank. That camel your soul rented from a barn, you might as well get on good terms with it. seeing you are out in the wilderness traveling. Sometimes I become my own pulse, enter that world inside. There, I have stayed a night marveling at the firmament. Yes, inside any living thing are stars. All that the eyes see is just practice for perfecting the inner vision. I can't speak anymore of poverty of heart or purse, for wherever I now stand, a gold mine appears. How did things change for me? So much for the better. I held God to his word when he said, seek and you will, ... You say the last word for me. You must know that famous phrase. Believe it, dear, for it is so very true. Inner vision. Turning your face to the east. There are two faces. Just like last week we looked at two shops, Rumi said, right? There are two shops. One is that cynical, critical, judgmental mind. He says you got to close up that shop. The disbelieving, doubting mind. Keep the shop open that's facing east. And you will find a gold mine wherever you turn, because there is the face of God looking back at you in everything. Again, Hafiz, how do I listen? So this is also something that the Sufis point out, which is marvelous, that because there's no separation between you and God, and everything that God is really you. The reality of you is God. That means right now you're hearing, you're seeing, you're smelling, you're touching, you're sensing, your feeling of presence, your feeling of the space in the room. All of this is divine. We're just skewing it because we're seeing through the wrong eyes, the wrong face. We're seeing two where there's really one. John doesn't exist except the way God knows John. And everything that I've ever thought about John has been unreal because John has kept me out of heaven. Remember, everything else is perishing but his face, and moment by moment we're being recreated, instant by instant. This is another great Sufi teaching. Instant by instant, you're being recreated. So that means every moment is another opportunity. Another opportunity to forget the self and remember God. And then you'll remember the deathless, the timeless, the abundant, the love. And you'll see that in everyone. And just because forms have passed away in this world, forms that were dearly beloved to us, we, when we turn our face east, will realize they didn't go anywhere. Heaven is here. This moment is God's moment. And everything that God is creating instant by instant appears here on the inner planes. You have to cultivate and open your inner vision, or you will be blind and deaf and lame. These are all metaphors in the gospel. The blind will see, the deaf will hear, the lame will learn to walk, and the ones that sit in darkness will have the gospel read to them. In other words, you'll turn your face around, and you'll see and hear and taste and touch and know the reality. Otherwise, you're limping, seeking and never finding. So how do I listen? It's another power that we seldom are conscious of, that when we listen for the truth, it will appear. When we look for God, it will manifest. So you're always listening for something. That's what Jesus says in A Course in Miracles. You're always sending out your witnesses. And your witnesses come back to you, reporting back to you what you intended and wanted to see. That's why he says perception isn't something that is happening to you. It's coming from you. He says projection makes perception. You're literally sending out into the world of shadows and forms what you want to experience and see. That's why he says in the Course, you always get what you want. And he says it beautifully in the Manual for Teachers when he talks about the prayer of the heart. He says the prayer of the heart doesn't exist within words. Every living thing is going on with the prayer of their heart. And he says what the prayer of the heart is what your choice is to experience. What do you want? And how much do you want it? The prayer of your heart is giving you the world you see. That's why Hafiz is asking us to ask ourselves, how do I listen? What am I listening for right now? What am I looking for right now? What do I want? What do I want right now? How bad do I want it? You having fun? How do I listen? How do I listen to others as if everyone were my master speaking to me his cherished last words? How do I listen to you as if you were the Alpha and Omega of all sound? This is where we can actually gift God to others. This is what Jesus actually gets at all through the Course. It's really what he's aiming for us to take on for ourselves, to literally be the miracle workers that he was. That when we listen and love and look for the God in others, we deny everything that's unreal in them and see in this instant the face of God. And Jesus says in A Course in Miracles, you need this. You need to do this, or you'll stay in hell. I mean, I want to jump up and down. The Holy Ghost is flowing through me right now. I want to do my dance. You need this. I need this. Or we stay in hell. Because remember, projection makes perception. Whatever you see in another, whatever you're condemning in another, it's your darkness. You put it there. You sent them to you so that you can escape your guilt and see it in them. They're the reason why I'm this way. If only they were different, I would be happy. It's just the case. It's just the truth of it. And he'll say in A Course in Miracles, that is the ego's plan for salvation. If only somebody else did or did not do something different, I would be happy. So, in truth, you're creating your hell. Because you're sending out your witnesses for hell, and then when they come with the messages you gave them to speak, you condemn them. It's such a displacement and distortion of reality, but it makes your little self feel vindicated. And you'll never even realize you have the other self that's facing God. It's veiled. You're deaf, dumb, and blind. And you're under the aegis or control of a master who is a tyrant and will not let up on you. Will keep in the inner planes, mind you. This is all happening on a spiritual dimension, beyond your physical senses, pushing you to blame, to hate, to judge, to condemn, to be angry because somebody did something that's causing me to feel what I don't want to feel. It's their fault. And this goes way back. So how do I listen now? What am I listening for? This one you may be familiar with. That shield you hold. That there is a shield you may still hold because of so many battles. I guess another conflict could begin at any moment. So maybe lugging it about could be of some use. Or is it just an undermining habit? Big question. Does not it get heavy? So much so that you sometimes carry it on your head at noon and then do wonder with your insecurities so intact about casting darkness as fears and shadows. Even if the sun is out, if the sun is out, if God is really all around in the middle of a beautiful day or night. Yes, how amazing that a small umbrella or an illusion held over your head or clung to can hide the stupendous fact of omniscient light. You know, the image is you're walking around putting yourself in shadow because of these debilitating, self-limiting, self-destructive habits that are going on in the unconscious mind. And you're literally shielding out this omniscient light that's all around and everywhere. Everything else is perishing but its face. And the face of God is looking at you through all faces. And yet the shield blocks that. You know, pardon the image, but this is used oftentimes in the Bible, especially in the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. Circumcise your hearts. It's the shield. It's that foreskin that's blocking you from sensing the inner planes and the presence of God. Circumcise your hearts, he says, and I will create in you a heart that can know me. Rumi said last week, it appears like circumcision here. Remember this? That if you do listen and heed the call and open to the call and accept reality on reality's terms, it will be this removing of the shield or the foreskin of your heart, and you'll become sensitive to the stars within the inner space. Rumi says, it shows up as circumcision here, but if all your life you're heedless and you got the authority problem and you're following the wrong direction, he says it shows up as castration when you cross over. Because you'll get hit with the light. And you'll be so out of alignment with reality that you'll flee from it. This is what the Tibetan Buddhists talk about in the Bardo Todo, the Book of the Dead. That you literally see your worst nightmares. And that was because your ego was your identity. Those images are literally being projected from your ego. So if you don't do the work here, it's not a good transition there. Not to put the fear of God in you, but there are definite payoffs and benefits for humbling ourselves now. It says God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And humility, again, huge Sufi principle. Humility is that first step of knowing your station. You're needy. You're in want. And having the sense of awareness to know where to get your needs met. Huge step. And know he'll meet you however and wherever you find yourself currently. And that will continue to grow. Trust. Everything will unfold perfectly, beautifully, harmoniously. But you have to humble yourself first. Because if you're proud and you think you can do it on your own and you're going to get your own way and me, mine, and myself at the cost of other people, pain. It's like Mr. T, right? Clubber Lang. What's your prediction for this fight? Pain. Another Rumi quote that I love. Outside of him, there, oh, I wish I had my phone. Outside of him, there is no love. Wherever you find love outside of him is pain. Because you're the face of God. Not because you're a bad boy or a bad girl looking for love in all the wrong places. You're the face of God, and you can only be satisfied with the face of God. Illusions won't satisfy you. This world won't satisfy you. Your relationships won't satisfy you. Nothing will satisfy you. But when you find the God within your heart, all things will be a delight. The wagging of a dog's tail and the song of a nightingale. Blue bag's going to go around. And remember, if you're joining us on Facebook, you can donate to the unityofstewart.org donation page. And just be sure that you place the tab on 8 a.m. service. Thank you so much. Anyone with thoughts or feedback? Beyond gender. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. What do you want? What do you want? Very good. Let's bless the offering. Very grateful for the gifts and knowing that they will be charged with our intention. We want them to bring change to the hearts and minds that they touch in whatever form they are transformed into. May this energy be a blessing in the earth, and so it is. Anyone else? Stephanie? Sounds like it would have come from me. Every moment, just for those who are joining us on video, every moment you're either appearing as presence or ego. Yes. Mm-hmm. So that came to mind in today's talk. Mm-hmm. You know, to play on that for a moment, he says in A Course in Miracles, you are either an idol or the thought God holds of you. Those are your realities you can choose. You can choose to be an idol, and that's why he says, so I find it funny, but it's tragic at the same time for those who are in it, that the body is the house of the idolater. The body is the house of the idolater, the mind that sees itself as the only reality and wants its needs met at the cost of others, and its pains and problems are the fault of others. That is idolatry. And he says that could be your reality. And if you choose it, it's very real. Or the thought God holds of you, which undoes all of those veils and you discover your pure presence. Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Possibly. Or they could have showed up as a way that you wanted to punish yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Seeing them as they truly are, opportunities to give and receive love. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very good. Yeah. Anybody else? All right, my friends, let's close out with our unity prayer. You can join us on Facebook in this sealing of the deal. And we pause in this moment knowing we are children of the moment, giving rise to what we want to see, what we want to be. And so we recognize that only God knows who we truly are. And so in humility, we surrender We open, we yield to the divine presence and allow that breath of the all-merciful to flow through us in every cell in our breath. And it's with this breath that we can seal with the unity prayer, knowing that the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Amen. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Thank you for being here. Much love. See the face of God because you are the face of God.